Welcome. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We really appreciate that. My name is Terry Craddock. I'm the Senior Director of Inova Blood Services. I've worked for Inova for over 35 years, a really long time. And I've heard a lot of patient stories during my time here. But this one that you're going to hear is pretty incredible. The timing of this event is very special to us for two reasons. First, this month is National Volunteer Blood Donor Month. We are really excited to celebrate that every year and to see as many donors as possible and celebrate with them. Also, tomorrow will be 2 years since our friend Tate was a patient at our hospital and used blood products from most of you. We're all here tonight to witness a very special patient and donor meeting. This is the first time in over 54 years that we have done something like this. So please bear with us. I cannot emphasize to you enough how rare an occurrence it is to have a donor and patient meeting. We are so happy to welcome you here this evening. The patient story you're about to hear is so impactful. We first saw a version of the video you're about to see, and when they mentioned the blood used for this patient, we knew we wanted to contact the family to see if they would be willing to participate in an event like this. Thankfully, they were. This event is being recorded for future use to help recruit blood donors to donate regularly to help patients like the one you will hear about this evening. We also invited media to attend to help raise awareness for blood donation. We would like to get the evening started by showing you a video created by the media services at Inova to tell the story of this wonderful patient.
Loudoun County Sheriff's Office. Someone accidentally stabbed themselves?
Yeah, he jumped on the couch and there was a knife.
This is, what, an 11-year-old? Is this your brother?
Yes, this is my brother.
Is the knife still in him, or?
Yes, the knife's still in him. I left it in and I covered it up with like a paper towel. My mom and my 16-year-old brother are at a driver's ed thing, and I'm 15.
Like I said, we got a bunch of units heading out there right now.
You're thinking, okay, it was an accidental stabbing. Maybe somebody dropped a knife on their foot. And when you walked into the scene to see Tate laying there on the floor and you were only able to see maybe 2 inches of this 7 or 8 inch knife sticking out of him, you knew that it was a very different kind of call.
The helicopter landed, and luckily, not too long ago, they started carrying blood to be able to do transfusions and administer blood in the field. Had they not administered that blood while he was en route to the hospital, that I don't know if he would have made it.
When Tate came in, we immediately started giving blood. Tate received CPR 3 times. I looked at his initial x-ray as we were rushing to the operating room, and I thought, oh my God, I don't know that I can save this boy. Because where that knife was in the center of his ability to live. The aorta was sliced completely in half, right through the kidney. I'm looking at that x-ray saying, don't cry, because it's gonna demoralize the whole team. But I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes, just looking at it.
One of the doctors came by, and I remember asking her, I said, what do I need to plan for? And she said, you need to be prepared to not take him home. I always prayed that I would be able to accept God's will, but for God's will, please, to not be to take Tate.
Trauma surgery is the ultimate puzzle, and you need all of the pieces to work correctly and to end up with a picture that you can hang on your wall. I had Dr. Grant with me, who was an excellent assistant, and excellent anesthesia, who kept pumping blood in as fast as they could, and we put in an interposition graft When the bleeding stopped, I looked up at Dr. Grant, and her and I just looked at each other and thought, maybe he's gonna live.
He had taken enough blood in the emergency room for 3 bodies worth. That was just for the surgery. He had more blood transfusions later. He lost one of his kidneys, cut his aorta in half, damaged his liver. There was an infection in part of his colon, so they had to remove it. We had to do a surgery on his leg because it had swelled so much that they thought they were going to lose it.
He was truly Humpty Dumpty, and he had truly fallen off the wall, and we were trying to put him back together.
12 hours later, he's still there. 24 hours later, he's still there. And so you've made it over that hump, and now you move on to the next. Okay, well, now what?
Both have you. Are you ready to take some steps, bud?
Once we started working through rebuilding his confidence, you got to see him smile. You got to see him joke with his siblings and laugh with his mom and smile with his dad. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, this is not the child we admitted. This is the child who he was before he came through those hospital doors.
The accident was January 24th. We were discharged March 3rd. And he walks fine, runs, jumps, everything that they said they didn't know if he was going to be able to do.
Tate required 86 different blood products. On an average day, we collect about 200 units of blood, and when you think that one little boy used 86 of those blood products from 86 different people to save his life, it's amazing. It's amazing that we have that many people who are willing to give this gift, and most of the time they will never even know who got it.
Everyone that had a hand in Tate surviving this, they didn't just save Tate, they saved us as a family. They saved me as a mom.
There's no doubt without the donors, that I don't think Tate could have made it. Every single person that was involved or that is involved can share, the success of Tate being here.
One simple word. Thanks.
So now I would like to introduce you to the Reynolds family. Nicole and her son Tate are here tonight to celebrate with us. Tate is a recipient of over 80 blood products that helped to save his life. Nicole and Tate. Nicole, would you like to join me on the stage? I shouldn't have let you sit down.
Okay, I'm going to try not to read just from this, but I do have it because I can go on and off on these tangents with the story. So my husband was supposed to be here. He is a corporate pilot and he's flying tonight, so he's not. But when I say my child or my son, it's really ours, but he's not here. So first, I would like to say thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule for our family again. I understand the first time was unbeknownst to you, and I'm not sure if it was the promise of a night out and free appetizers that brought you in tonight, or if it was out of curiosity, but I'm glad you're here. So my name is Nicole. I mostly answer to Mama, Mom, 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 and the likes of that. I have 4 sons from 18 to 11. I am married to a wonderful man that has shared his life with me since 11th grade. A traveler, a lover of life, a gypsy spirit. I'm also a helicopter mom. I am that mom that believes in double knotting shoelaces. And I am Southern in all that accompanies the meaning of that word. While I talk, there's going to be pictures. I've put together a slideshow, some pictures of Tate that are going to come up on the screen. I want you to see what I could have lost, actually what I did lose, and then was given back to me. Like I said, I'm a mother of 4. This is a monumental part of my identity. I am not a mother of 3. I'm a mother of 4. And I don't know what life would have looked like for us if Tate had faded out of these family pictures. So I don't know if you've ever driven by a bad car wreck or heard a story on the news of a terrible loss that someone suffered and thought, wow, that is horrible. Your heart goes out to them, and the incident might cross your mind once or twice, but life continues on. The world keeps spinning, and soon, whatever it was that didn't directly touch your life fades away. I don't know what life was like for you the day you decided to donate. Maybe there was a blood drive at work. Maybe you saw a sign at a local fire station. Maybe you drove to the center because something has touched your life that compels you to give. Maybe you almost didn't make it. Maybe your schedule wasn't as flexible as you had originally anticipated. Maybe you hate needles and started thinking twice as you settled into the chair. But I'm glad you didn't change your mind. I'm glad you took the time to give of yourselves. That day, in that moment, our lives were destined to collide. I have thought of all the different ways I could stand up here tonight and share my story. If I could command your attention for hours, I would tell you all the ways that life fell into place 2 years ago tomorrow. I would share the stories of those that were there that played an integral part in us being here tonight, some just for a moment, others over the course of weeks, months, and years. But I don't have hours tonight, and tonight is about the role each of you guys played in keeping my family whole. I honestly don't know where to start because I can remember everything. I can close my eyes and still feel the raw emotions that coursed through my body and brought me to my knees, screaming up to the heavens, begging for mercy as the helicopter disappeared from sight with my son on it. January 24th, 2017 was a regular day. Well, not really. Just the day before, I saw on Facebook how one of my best friends from high school had lost her husband suddenly. Her brother had posted the news, and my heart broke. They were my age, Chad's age. They had 2 small children. I thought of all the posts I had seen of them laughing together and embracing the few moments he had to share between shifts at the hospital, last year of his residency. Life was good for them. Chad and I shook our heads, sighed, and thought about our own mortality, tried to decide how we would help Allison, but the world spun. The boys went to school. I ran errands. I picked the boys up from school, and we made our way back home. That evening, my oldest son had a mandatory driver's ed meeting. This was the last one available and the last step for him to get his license. I made dinner. It was elk patties with gravy, broccoli, and corn. Chad had an unexpected call requesting his expertise and help from his employer, who was constructing a helicopter pad at his private property in Percival. I texted Chad explaining I had to leave the boys at home, and you'll see this text. I wanted to see when he'd be home, asked him to hurry because I was uncomfortable leaving them. Tate asked if he could eat in the living room, and I said no, like always, and the world spun. Dylan and I headed out, leaving my 15-year-old in charge of Tate and his younger brother. Loudon Valley was 5 minutes from the house. We went to the meeting. We listened to all the responsibilities of being a good driver after being told by the police officers to make sure we silenced our phones, teens and parents alike. We drove to the gas station, we filled up, and we headed home. And the world spun. As we went under the bridge on Berlin Turnpike, I could see the lights. It looked like someone's house was on fire. Maybe it looked like daybreak in the middle of the darkness. As Dylan pulled into the turn lane, I realized it was my house, and it wasn't on fire, and it certainly wasn't daybreak. There were emergency vehicles everywhere. I yelled at Dylan to stop and to get out because I knew he wouldn't be able to navigate through all of the emergency vehicles with confidence. I whipped through the cars, through the ditch, on the grass, into the garage. There were vehicles everywhere. And the world kept spinning, but for me it slowed down just a little bit. People were running towards me, trying to grab my arms and direct me away from the garage. And for some reason, I knew that if they didn't want me going that way, that was exactly the way I wanted to go. Honestly, my first thought was that someone had broken into the house and had slaughtered all of my children. There were that many lights, cars, and people. I didn't know what I was going to find, but I knew I needed to get inside. As I came through the laundry room, my eyes landed on Tate. He was laying on the floor. I searched him, and I saw the knife sticking out of his side. 2 EMS guys caught me before I hit the ground. One shook me by my shoulders and told me to get it together, like now. There were people everywhere. There were people in my garage waiting. There were people in my laundry room waiting, in my foyer, kitchen, halls, waiting, on the front lawn, in the driveway, down the street, waiting. You couldn't have fit another emergency vehicle on my property in the driveway and the lane, okay. And the world spun. For all of you sitting out here, the world spun as it always does that night. But for me, it was spinning out of control. I laid on the floor beside Tate just looking at him. I didn't know exactly what had happened. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what to say to him. We were surrounded by firefighters, EMT, and police officer. Lee, who you will meet next, was at Tate's head, and I was stretched out as close to him as I could get without freaking Lee out, because I really think he thought I was going to try and pick Tate up and run off with him. The world screeched to a stop on its axis when Tate looked at me and quietly whispered, "Mama, I am so sorry. Mama, my head hurts so bad and I can't feel my legs. Mama, I love you. Mama, I think I'm going to die." Then, like magic, the world started spinning again. People were moving, like hustling. There was a plan, sort of. Tate was put on a stretcher and loaded into the back of an ambulance where he received blood. He was prepped for a helicopter ride he was about to take. I got one more "I love you" before his body shut down from the pain and trauma. The medevac landed in my side yard. The engines never shut down. Tate was rushed to the helicopter where I learned he received more life-saving blood, and like that, he was gone. Up and over the tree line, over the house, and towards some hospital I had never heard of and had no idea how to get to, because we had just moved to Percival. I hit my knees, and I cried out, and I begged God that his will would align with mine. "Lord, I know thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven, but Lord, I beg you that your will not to be to take my son. Please don't take my son." What happened in the ER isn't my story to tell, but I know the blood bank was integral to saving Tate. Dr. Rizzo, that's her story, and I think she'll be talking after Lee. I also know I stood beside Tate time after time watching life-sustaining, healing bags of blood, plasma, and platelets drain into my child. I laid beside him as he underwent dialysis time and again to clean the toxins from his body out of the blood that would eventually become his own.
I'm starting to regret not telling all of this to you. You never got
As it's already been said, Tate consumed, my number was 83 units of blood, plasma, and platelets over the course of our journey. Had everything not fallen into place as perfectly as it did that night, including your decision to donate blood days, weeks before, I wouldn't be a mother of 4 today. And as nicely as this looks on paper, I am a type A personality, Virgo. I like everything to fit in their boxes accordingly as they're supposed to. I am the protector of my children. I'm a stay-at-home mom that has 2 master's degrees, and I choose to be at home. I've had disappointments in life. I've had heartache. I have had pain. I have had days that I thought maybe it wouldn't be okay because something wasn't falling into place. I have never, ever been brought to my knees the way that I was that night, that entire night. I got myself in the car and I drove to the hospital and I waited in the emergency room and I sat outside the emergency room and I wept and I sobbed and I had doctors and nurses come and ask me if they could move me and I said, no, I'm good. And I know I was scaring everybody, but I had to weep for my child. My husband came to me and he said, Nicole, please pray for Tate because I don't know if God's listening to me right now. He was broken. Because that's not what happens to a parent. A parent doesn't look down at their child and they tell you, I think I'm going to die. I had a very unhappy trauma surgeon come out and tell me that she didn't know. She didn't know what was going to happen. I had doctors tell me, you need to plan on not taking this child home. And if you do, he's going to have severe handicaps because he shouldn't have made it. Everything fell into place from being in Purcellville to having Dr. Rizzo to the EMT that was there that demanded that he was put on a stretcher, to the helicopter ride and the blood being on the helicopter, to everything fell into place perfectly. I'm not going to stand up here and preach. I do believe that it was God that worked that out for us, but it's the worst thing I've ever gone through in my entire life. And I know what broken can feel like now. But on the flip side, I also know what healed is like because we are on the other side. He is okay. He is perfect. A little sassy, but perfect. And I thank you guys. I thank you guys for giving because he wouldn't have made it. Everything else could have fallen into place, but he wouldn't have made it if he didn't have the blood that he kept losing being put back in. So anyway, this is our story, and thank you for being here tonight. Lee's going to come up and share his part and how he actually didn't have a chance to be in the video, but he was a very integral first responder. He was the first responder, seniority on the scene, and tried to help me keep it together. So, Lee?
Good evening. As Nicole said, my name is Lee. My name is Lee Caulfield. I am a firefighter paramedic captain at Mount Weather Fire and Rescue Department. I am not a donor in this particular case in regards to Tate of blood, but Tate certainly has had a profound impact on my career. The incident that involved Tate has certainly created a situation where I have learned a great deal and met some phenomenal people, namely the Reynolds family. But I was asked to speak this evening to share with you some of the details from my perspective. So a little bit about me, because I think it's important. I think it kind of puts some puzzle pieces together. I am a lifelong resident of Clark County, Virginia. Anybody know where Clark County is? Anybody? Anybody heard of Clark County? Good. Very, very small county in northwestern Virginia that touches Loudoun on the west side of Loudoun. Most folks, when they're driving Route 7 and go over the mountain, think they drop directly into Frederick County, but no, there is another county there called Clark County. I've lived my whole life there, born and raised. I have worked at Mount Weather. If any of you have heard of that cool place, I've worked there since 1996. I'm a captain in the fire department there. I am also the volunteer fire chief in Boyce, Virginia, a little small town, about 500 people. And I work part-time in my spare time, which I don't have very much of, for Valley Health as a transport paramedic, taking patients inter-facility, from hospital to hospital. So why would I want to talk about all that? Because my travels and my other exposures to emergency medicine keep me in touch with all of the latest and greatest things and new technology and different ways of doing things in emergency medicine. And it gives me, as an emergency medicine provider, as a paramedic, a very, very broad foundation in my skill set. And I have spent a fairly decent chunk of my adult life in the back of an ambulance since I joined Boyce Volunteer Fire Company when I was 16. I am now 51. You can do the math. I've spent a lot of my adult life in the back of an ambulance. It is my comfort zone. It is where, as my daughter explains to me, Dad, you are absolutely in your zone. Your voice changes, your demeanors change, because it is a big chunk of who I am and what I do. So why in the world would Mount Weather Fire Department's ambulance been at Tate Reynolds' house almost 2 years ago on this particular night? It is a series of almost incomprehensible events. The very short, abridged version is Mount Weather Fire Department has a very robust mutual aid policy with Loudoun County, Virginia. Loudoun County, Virginia is the fastest growing county in the country. Because of that aspect of Loudoun, their call volume at sometimes peaks to incredible numbers at one time, lots of calls going on. When that happens, Loudoun leans on its mutual aid partners. And this particular night, they needed a medic unit to go to a call down off Foggy Bottom Road. I shouldn't even have been on the ambulance. I very, very rarely ride an ambulance at Mount Weather. I'm a captain, and I just don't do that very often. There was about a 2.5 hour window where, because of some staffing changes, I got put on the medic unit. And during that 2.5 hour window, we got dispatched to go to Loudoun, and because of what was going on in western Loudoun that particular night, there was 4 back-to-back calls. I went to one call. Before I got there, they'd pull me off, send me to another, pull me off, send me to another, pulled me off, sent me to another. Because of that sequence of events, Mount Weather's medic unit, myself and my partner, Rob Van Vliet, ended up within about 3 miles of Chad and Nicole's house when Tate's accident occurred. We were the only paramedic unit on the scene. There was an EMS battalion chief, you saw her in the video, Chief Artiste, who was there, and Jamie Cooper, the battalion chief, but we were the only medic unit there. And I've run a lot of calls in my adult life. I've done a lot of training, and train, fire side, EMS side, hazmat side. I've run a lot of stupid calls. I've run a lot of calls that an ambulance didn't even need to be there. And I've also run a lot of challenging calls, but when I walked into Nicole and Chad's house that night, we parked the ambulance, went to the front door. As I got ready to grab the front door flew open, and an 18-year-old volunteer firefighter from Purcellville Fire Company was standing there. His eyes were about as big around his dinner plates, and I said to him, "Just take me to the patient." So what we came upon was absolutely one of the most challenging cases in the field that I have ever dealt with. Those challenges included a rapidly deteriorating patient. We were faced with a situation where Tate was presenting many different symptoms, hypotension, rapid pulse rate. He was extremely shocky. And we kept dealing with temporary paralysis. For example, 1 minute when I assessed him, he'd be able to wiggle his toes and feel me touching his legs. The next minute, he could not. I went through my first EMT class in 1989. And in 1989, we trained EMTs and medics to backboard all trauma patients, shootings, stabbings, motor vehicle accidents. We have since in EMS kind of gotten away from that, but you know, I'm kind of old school in certain regards, and I made a decision very early on to backboard Tate, especially when we realized we were dealing with some temporary paralysis or intermittent paralysis. It would come and go. There were other providers on the scene that didn't want me to do that. They wanted to scoop him up and carry him to the ambulance. It takes a lot to get me riled up. I'm a very mild-mannered person, but I put my foot down, got a little loud, said, nope, we're backboarding him. That's just the way it's going to be. We got out to the back of the medic unit, got him loaded, started obtaining our vascular access, started getting a game plan together. And in these cases, my goal as a paramedic always is to get out in front of where the incident is headed, get out in front. Well, it's just a very, very challenging case. We ended up doing a rapid sequence intubation on Tate to secure his airway. And one of the challenges with severe trauma patients in the field that we deal with is we are trying to give fluids, we're trying to infuse fluids to maintain a good blood pressure. Well, in cases where we have large quantities of blood loss, we end up just diluting the blood that is left with enough normal saline to try and keep a blood pressure up. I made a decision inside the house to fly Tate to a trauma center. I knew, so one of my responsibilities is to make sure our patients get to the facility that is going to best be able to treat them. Many times in the past, I've gotten, or providers have gotten a patient to the closest hospital, if you will, and then they end up having to be transferred to another hospital with not quite the outcome that everybody was hoping for. I knew in the first 5 minutes of this call that I wanted Tate to go to Fairfax. It was my responsibility as the lead paramedic to make that call. I knew how I wanted to get him there by helicopter. So when we were in the back of the medic unit, we got a radio message from Loudoun County that the helicopter that was supposed to come from Leesburg Airport had a fault light come on while they were on the ground and could not lift off. They were trying to get us another helicopter. So Nicole Artiste and myself started trying to come up with a plan B. One of those options was driving the ambulance to either Winchester or Fairfax. And I really pushed hard to make sure that we were going to Fairfax, and I really preferred to fly him there. Kept relaying that message, finally got word that the helicopter would be coming, and as soon as that helicopter was in radio range, I called them on the radio to give them my report, and in that report I included that when they got in the back of the ambulance, they needed to have their blood product in their hand. I was told by people who were listening to the radio that night in other fire stations in Loudoun County that I said it at least 3 times. I don't remember saying it at least 3 times, but I needed to get my point across to the flight crew that when they got in the back of the ambulance, they needed to have blood product in their hand. It was my way of trying to get out in front of this incident and ensure that we delivered to Fairfax Hospital a viable patient that could be worked on further there. When they got in the back of the medic unit off the helicopter, they did indeed have their blood product with them. I do believe wholeheartedly that it made a profound difference in this case. I think it guaranteed or at least played a big role in Tate arriving at Fairfax viable. I don't know that the outcome would have been the same without the blood product in the flight from Purcellville to Inova. This incident certainly had a profound impact on me as a provider. It had an impact on my career. It is an absolute honor to stand here tonight and be able to celebrate Tate's life and the life of his family. It is a testament to the many medical providers that had a role in this, and I am just honored and privileged to be included in that group. I want to thank Nicole and the organizers of this event for inviting me and allowing me to speak. It's an absolute honor, and I thank you very much.
So how many of you are here tonight because you received the invitation because you are a blood donor? I'm sorry, thank you for correcting me. Blood, plasma, platelets. Who are our blood plasma platelet donors? It's pretty amazing. This is very special for me because I've devoted my life and my career to saving patients like Tate and, you know, working with our blood donors for the amazing mission that we have and that we do every single day. It's also special to me tonight because my dad happened to be one of the plasma donors for Tate, which I was pretty shocked by when I looked at the list of names. So just giving my dad, Ron, over there. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Yep. Just giving him a shout out. He's an AB, so he donates platelets every couple of weeks. So really happy about that. But I can't tell you how amazing each and every one of you are. Nicole is absolutely right. There were so many pieces of the puzzle that came together. And I don't think any of those pieces would come together without each and every one of you donating those life-saving blood products. So now it's my privilege to welcome Dr. Rizzo to the stage. She is the Vice Chairman of Surgery at Inova Fairfax Hospital, and she, stealing the trauma cooler. And she took care of Tate. So thank you, Dr. Rizzo, for being here tonight.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having us. I like to describe myself as your friendly neighborhood trauma surgeon. My husband says that I'm kind of the no-fun zone because I've seen all the bad things that have ever happened in Fairfax County. And what you should be thankful for is that you do live near a trauma center. And Nicole, they've just moved to Idaho, and what she doesn't know is there's only 2 trauma centers in Idaho. And she needs to check out where the closest one is. Because wherever I go in the country and the world, I check out where the closest trauma center is. The cooler that I just brought up here is something we call the Massive Transfusion Cooler. And it's something that only trauma centers have. And in there is blood ready to go. 8 units of PAC cells, 4 units of FFP, fresh frozen plasma, and a unit of platelets. That's 12 of you in this cooler. Tate received almost 10 of these coolers, 3 of them in the first night. And he wouldn't be here if we didn't have those blood products. So 2 stories that go with that. My brother-in-law was born before RhoGAM. That's when if someone was O negative and the mother was O positive, the child had a pretty good chance of dying. So my mother-in-law donated blood every month in honor of people like you who gave blood to keep her son alive. In that payback moment, my son is O negative, the universal donor. So he too now donates blood every month at the urging of his very persuasive mother. And my youngest daughter, the one Nicole's trying to fix her sons up with, runs the blood bank drive at Bishop O'Connell High School and has run over 5 blood drives this year alone. So I know how blood is life-saving. And even with all of our modern medicine and technology, we have not yet come up with something better than good blood from a person. I am also in the military. We do living blood banks. When we get a mass casualty, a bunch of people that are injured, we line up the troops, their dog tags, have their blood type. We take the blood right from them and put them into the casualties. Blood is still a life-saving mechanism. And when I have patients that come in like Nicole and families similar, I always have a little talk with them, how the patient's doing, what's going on, and then I say, go call all your friends and neighbors. We need them to replenish our blood bank. And for the most part, they do. And that is why Tate is here today. And I am here to thank you for helping me save his life, because I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rizzo. So before I introduce Gloria, I just wanted to introduce the members of my team at Innova Blood Services, all of us who work really hard to get the donors through the door and get those products tested and out the door over to our transfusion service at Fairfax Hospital. So I'm going to try and do this really quick. So we have Noelle, who is our donor liaison, who works with our blood drives. Noelle, you want to wave? We have Nick Lilly, who is the director of the Blood Center. We have Rebecca, who makes sure that blood is shipped out to the transfusion services whenever they order it. We have Imelda, who takes care of me, which is a really big job. We have Dr. Grace Sesse, who is the medical director of Innova Blood Services, and her husband, Len, who supports her every step of the way. We have Heather Wade in the back, who organizes all our blood drives. We have Carolyn Bayless, who makes sure those blood drives go off without a hitch. AJ Hughes, who is in charge of our fixed sites. Angela Warfield, who is our business manager. And then we have Julia, who's our marketing manager, who organized this event tonight. So thank you all. So now I want to introduce you to Gloria McManama. Gloria is the manager of the transfusion service at Innova Fairfax Hospital. She is the one who calls me on a daily basis and says, we need more. We need more. Do you have any more platelets? Do you have any more O negative? She calls me pretty much daily for blood products to take care of our patients. Gloria?
Well, it is such an honor to be here, and I have to tell you that in researching what I would discuss, I had noticed that Dr. Rizzo had a very busy night that night. I was looking at the timeline of the ER of our massive transfusions, and you had one like almost right an hour before this. It was like a gunshot wound, and I'm like, how does she do this? But anyway, Innova, anything is possible, and it seems like we can always pull it off. I don't know how it happens, but it's magical. But anyway, as Terry said, my name is Gloria McManama. I am the manager of the blood bank at Fairfax Hospital. I've been there like Terry for 35 years. As a matter of fact, she was a student of mine. So, you know, time travels very quickly when you're having fun, and it's very busy and complicated at Fairfax. So anyway, our responsibility in the blood bank is to make sure that we have all the blood products we need for our patients, which is sometimes very challenging, and it varies from day to day. And as Terry said, it's not uncommon for us to talk several times, text during the day, we need more platelets, we have an APOS, MTP, you know, we've got this, we've got that, you know, and it's just amazing what all communication is involved to keep all of us running smoothly. And she's transferring blood products maybe from Mount Vernon that aren't needed or somewhere else, just to make sure that Fairfax has what we need, because we tend to have, well, we do have the trauma patients. So our inventory, what we try to keep is 500 units of red cells, 350 units of frozen plasma, and at least 10 platelets in our inventory at all times. That's just what we need, and it's a phenomenal amount. And I was kind of surprised because I lived there every day for 35 years. You'd think I would remember that. When I started adding it up, I'm like, 500 units of red cells, that's like a ton of them. But anyway, it's a challenge, but we have to have everything that we need for our trauma patients because that's what we're all about. And our community, as you've heard, has gotten bigger and bigger, where helicopters are flying patients in from Winchester and from along other Valley Health hospitals. So it's not just all about our little Fairfax County or Loudoun County or, our nearby neighbors anymore. It's like they're coming from everywhere. And I think it bears, Inova Fairfax is the only level 1 trauma center in Northern Virginia, which means that we are the ones taking care of the critically ill patients in our area. Well, Dr. Rizzo and her. So as Dr. Rizzo pointed out, this is our MTP cooler. We call it a trauma cooler, MTP cooler. It's just like any other cooler that you might take to Wolf Trap or to the beach. But at Inova Fairfax, we use this for blood products. And typically, we have 2 different sizes. This is our little special platelet cooler inside. As you know, we treasure all of our blood products, and they have to be stored exactly according to FDA regulations, or else Terry will kill me. So we make sure that all of our products are packed, and we usually put 5 and 5 in a cooler unless a physician requests something different. So we'll have 5 red cells, 5 plasma. The little guy is for the platelets. And it's all predefined. The surgeon does not have to worry about what blood products to order. We just automatically do it. We know that it's too hard to keep track. They're trying to save the patient's life. What we could do is that we can deliver them what they need right there in that one cooler. And if you had 2 of those coolers, that would be a body exchange for an adult patient. 1 cooler, I don't know about Tate's, I don't remember how much she weighed, but 1 cooler is a normal child, body replacement. So anyway, we're sort of passionate about our coolers. We probably have like 25 of them in the blood bank. I should have taken a picture. Our department is actually being overtaken by coolers. But anyway, as several people have mentioned, that MTP, which is kind of a household name around Fairfax, but it's a mass transfusion protocol, activated by a phone call to the blood bank for hemorrhaging patients. All it takes is a phone call. No fancy ordering, none of this. You just pick up the phone. We have a special blood bank phone, MTP phone, with its own number. You call that number, and the blood bank immediately goes into action, starts packing coolers, because we're always going to pack the first 2 right out of the gate, because we know they're going to come and grab 1, and then we got to have 1, always 1 ahead. But anyway, we receive that call. A runner is dispatched because sadly, we're in the basement of the old Women's and Children's building, which is kind of far from the ER, the ORs. So what we're always doing is they have to send a dispatcher. So sometimes, and these guys, they call them runners, but they are running with these coolers. And I don't know, it's probably a block or 2. I don't know how many steps they have to take to get from us to the ER or us to these ORs. But it's amazing to me. And they just keep running back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth. But anyway, on January 24th, 2017, which, as was previously mentioned by Tate's mom, 2 years ago from tomorrow, was a very busy evening in the blood bank. We already had the gunshot wound. And at 10:30, things were kind of looking okay. And then we hear the hospital page, pediatric code blue, ETA, 10 minutes by air. So, blood bank techs hearing the page prepare for the possibility that the patient might need the massive transfusion protocol activated in order to survive. And we don't really have that many pediatric MTPs at Fairfax. So we have a lot of trauma patients, pediatric, but not the massive transfusion. But we already had our plan, and we were going with it. So shortly after the announcement, the blood bank received the call, activate MTP, and it was for Tate. One of the techs took the message from the ED that our MTP patient was an 11-year-old male with a temporary trauma name of Beta 571A. That was your alternate name. And that's just the hospital's way of being able to bring the patient in very quickly, have a positive patient ID, that's safe for the patient, but yet gives all of us what we need to be able to just give those blood products right away. We don't have to worry about who they are, or we don't really care. Dr. Rizzo knows what's wrong with them, and we know they need blood products, and you guys have donated them, so we're good to go. But, so anyway, as Tate was we took the message with his name, and we found out at that point that he almost bypassed the ER, went directly to the OR, I believe. And as Tate was being transported to the operating room, the blood bank team packed the red cells, plasma, and platelets needed for the MTP coolers, and runners were dispatched. As soon as the first cooler was picked up, another one was automatically prepared. The runners were picking up coolers so quickly from 10:30 p.m. to midnight that the entire blood bank team stayed over to help the oncoming night shift continue to pack coolers for Tate. The first 4 coolers were issued within 30 minutes of the MTP activation, and I believe the MTP activation probably happened as soon as he arrived. The first 4 coolers had OPOS, RBCs, and AB plasma. We did not have a blood type. We go with universal donors. So thank you to all of you OPOS and AB plasma patients. Very special, because many times we cannot get that blood type right away. So we're going to use the OPOS and the AB plasma. In preparing the 5th cooler, testing on Tate's blood type was completed, and his blood type was known to be A positive. At that point, we switched him over and started with him with the A positive RBCs. So all of you, whether you're OPOS, it doesn't matter what blood type you are, we have a trauma patient for you. So don't think that you're exempt or it's all about the O people. Because we're always going to be trying to preserve our O's, because we also have a pretty active code hemorrhage program for our OB patients. So like I said, it's a balancing act. And in 2018, we had 125 MTPs at Fairfax Hospital, and the number continues to increase every year. So I think we had 75 OB hemorrhages, so we are happy in place with the blood products. And as many of you have mentioned, it's important to draw attention to the fact that while this accident happened near the end of January, some of the donors in this room actually donated in December. So it's not like you came in to donate because you knew we were short. You just did your automatic thing. You came in and you donated when you were eligible, and then that meant when someone needed them emergently, like Tate, they were here. And that's so important for blood donation, that you don't just donate when there's an emergency or some disaster. You donate regularly, because that's the patients that you can really help the most. But anyway, Tate's family certainly didn't expect that their son would need blood products that day, but he did. And that's the case for most patients who need blood products. They don't expect they will need them, but those patients and their families are grateful for the products for their loved ones. Thank you for donating blood. Your donation saved Tate's life and the lives of many others at Fairfax. And our blood bank could not do this without your support. And so please continue to donate. And I'm happy to meet all of you, because I work in the blood bank. We only see the bags of blood, and we see the tubes. I saw Tate's tube of blood, but I didn't get to meet Tate or his family. And I see only your bags of blood products that come from the donor center. So it's hard to meet. It's really nice to put a face with the names and everything. So thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Gloria is also a B negative platelet donor, so. Okay, so again, for all of you who are donors, I think we told you in your invitation that you would have an opportunity to speak and talk about why you donate blood, what made you come in and donate blood. So who would like to come up and share why they donate? Come on, someone. Okay. AJ, you got a mic?
Please
okay,
don't
we
just
have
leave me.
AJ, right up front.
I gave blood for the first time when I was working in a hospital, and they, over the loudspeaker, they gave the request. I put a 2-pound weight in my pocket.
to meet the weight requirements, I'm sure, yes.
And left the floor and gave my first unit. In my earlier life, I was an EMT. I thank God that I never saw anything like that. I just can't imagine. I've been a nurse since we came down from the trees. I worked in ICU for 5 years. I have never seen anybody as sick as Tate. I've seen some pretty sick patients. This is an amazing family, and I just want to thank you for inviting me here so I could witness this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so who else would like to share?
I started working for Blood Donor Services in 1996, and I started donating blood. I'm O positive, and 2 years later, my daughter needed blood products. She used over 250 units of blood. She is now 40 years old. I have 3 grandchildren. She has a master's in education, and she's here today because of all of us. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I've never been very good at this. Tate, nice to meet you, buddy. My name's Danny, and I'm also an emergency services provider. I've been a volunteer fireman for coming up on this 14 years now, and I'm a lieutenant from where I live in Southern Maryland. But this actually wasn't the path that took me to donate blood. My career, my occupation is a steam fitter, and we have a 5-year apprenticeship, and twice a year you guys come around to Local 602,
Yep.
and we donate blood. And I can tell you right now, it's probably one of the best things I've ever done. I was very hesitant of it at first, but I don't have any regrets, not a single one. And Tate, I mean, you're a miracle, buddy. Honestly, to say miracles, they do happen, you're it. And it's an honor to be here to share this with you and your family, and best of wishes to you. Thank you.
Hi, I honestly feel unworthy even to be here today because I don't donate as often as I wish I could, but it's truly an honor to be here. I'm a mother of 2 children, so your story just like made me bawl. I was just thinking about being in that position, with my children. I'm just so grateful that I was able to be a part of this, and it's just really making me want to donate more, so thank you.
Yay!
I've been given since 1994. I went to, for some reason, I was inspired to go to the hospital, Mount Vernon Hospital, and I gave whole blood. And then I picked up this pamphlet about platelets. So I thought, well, that seems interesting. So I tried it out, and it seems pretty easy. It's not that big a deal. I always think to myself, I'm glad I'm not on the receiving end. I'm glad to do it. I never needed to have blood given to me, so I think it's the least I could do. And, the fact that God wants you to love God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. I mean, I can't think of another way or a better way to do that. It's just, and to think that we can share our blood. What if we couldn't share our blood? That would be tragic. And it's just a wonderful thing that we can do, and just glad to be able to help. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mason, and some of the folks at Inova may know me as the guy who has the identical twin brother, because the two of us are around pretty frequently. We donate a lot.
And get us very confused. Right?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. He was actually the one who introduced me to Inova and encouraged me to start donating. And I think I would second what Bill said. I mean, when you think about the kind of impact that you're having by just giving a little bit of your time, I mean, I don't know that there's another activity that I can think of where you get that kind of return on investment, where it's just 1 to 2 hours of your time and you're literally saving a life. I mean, it's so much more than that. I mean, you're really rewriting history for a person or for a family, and you're actually, in a way, you're changing the world because you're changing someone's world. So it means a lot to me. I enjoy doing it every time, and I especially enjoy the free snacks at the end. So keep it up.
Thank you. My name is Jim Poole. I live over in the Mount Vernon area, and I'm retired from the National Park Service. Several years ago, I decided, after I was going through my wife's attic looking for my stuff, I found some certificates that I earned as a Boy Scout in upstate New York many, many years ago, stating accurately and factually that I had camped out at least one night in the New York State winter in the Boy Scouts for a period of 4 years. And I thought, boy, that's a good record when I was a kid. What could I do to match that now? And somehow donating blood once a month came up, and I think my wife, the registered nurse, emergency room nurse, may have had something to do with that. But somebody said, well, why don't you just give blood once a month for the next 4 years? I thought, I can do that. So I went over to Woodbine and said, I'm here to give blood, and I want to give blood once a month for 4 years. And one of the technicians said, well, come on to my little room, I'll take your blood and take your pulse and all of that stuff. And they actually took my blood, and they said, well, you're an A negative. Why don't you give platelets? Okay, what are platelets? So whatever was fine with them was fine with me, so I gave platelets. And then I went back a couple other times, and they tested me for platelets, and my score wasn't high enough to donate platelets, so they turned me down. And I said, well, what else you got here? And they said, well, how about double red cells? All right, what's a double red cell? Fine, stick the needle in, take whatever you want. I'm retired, take whatever you want. And they did that, and then I went to the out desk and I said, well, okay, I'm going to come back next month. And they said, whoops, no, you're not. You can't come back for another 4 months because you gave double reds, dummy. You should have just given whole blood. Then you could. Do you understand how Inova has screwed up my record?
We'll give you credit for whatever you want. I hope we didn't really call you dummy.
Anyway, I'm coming back the next time I'm ready to donate, or whenever you let me come back. I guess that's 2 months from now. Thank you very much.
My name's Mary, and I've been giving blood for, I don't know how many years. Started doing blood drives at work and at my church. And then at some point, somebody at one of those blood drives said, well, you're AB positive. You're the universal donor for platelets and plasma. And you're not much use to us for whole blood. You're the one type that we always have enough of and that we sometimes throw out because we don't need you. And the backstory on that is in my family, my mother was A positive, my father was B negative. Both were O recessive. So the 3 kids could have been any of the 8 blood types. What did we end up with? O negative, the universal donor, and 2 AB positives, the universal recipients. And we all give blood. So they approached me and said, well, have you thought about platelets and plasma? You're much more useful that way, and you can do it more often. So I started doing it, and it was long enough ago that those of you who do platelets and plasma remember the times when it was a 2-needle thing. It went in one, started in one arm and came back in the back of the other hand, and took much longer, and you couldn't really read a book or do much of anything because it was tying up both arms. So now I try to come every 2 weeks. And don't always make it. And as the women in the group know, the hemoglobin count can be a problem. So I have to make sure that, in the couple of days before I give, I either eat a lot of red meat, which I don't normally do, or take extra iron pills to try to get that hemoglobin count up high enough. But I do it because I can. It's something that's easy to do and that lots of people either can't or don't feel comfortable doing. So as long as I can do it, I'll keep showing up at at Woodburn.
My name's Eric. First off, thank you very much for sharing what's going to be, even to relive it every time, it's just going to be incredible. You're very fortunate. You got a very loving family. I come from a very loving family, so I always appreciate that. I also appreciate what you guys have done. As you said, I've been donating since '97, platelets, A positive. And, always impressed with the whole thing. And this was a very nice thing to actually meet the recipient and talk a little bit about it. And again, for you guys to share it. And also just some of the medical services. That's, we always have the dinners and we always have inspirational stories and we get a lot of inspired from those things. But this is a little bit more intimate in some way, a little different, a little bit nicer in some way. Mason, also appreciate what you said. You're right. It does, in fact, really change lives, and that's a good thing. And I think you said that very nicely. Anyways, just thank you very much. And again, thank you very much for sharing this with us. And it was very nice to meet you.
Hi, I'm Robert. I'm A negative. I don't know how I got into this group. Everybody asks me what I am. I'm saying I'm a 92 because that's A minus in the score. I started donating blood in 1981, and I passed out. So I didn't do it again. Then my church started drawing blood again, and in the mid-90s, so I went to the church and I donated blood, and I passed out. And I tried that a couple times. I said, maybe this isn't for me. Then I broke the code. If you don't eat, don't give blood. So now I'm a full stomach blood donor. And at some point they talked me into donating platelets, and eventually I'll get on the pillar there at Woodburn. But the reason why I donated on this particular day, according to the card, it was December 30th, is because it's the holidays and it's Christmas and it's a chance to give back. And I just walked into the clinic that particular day because it was Christmas, holiday times, and I donated blood. And every time I try and give right around that time of year because it's really needed, and it's the right thing to do. So Tate, congratulations.
This doesn't happen. People don't jump over the back of the sofa when their mother clearly tells them not to do it over and over again. And they don't land on a steak knife. They just don't. It doesn't happen. So, welcome to my world for boys. Stuff happens. But you were sitting there giving your blood that we were going to need desperately. Well, we were living our lives. We were out skiing, taking pictures, making memories, and here we are, colliding into each other. So, thank you guys again.
Hey, hi, my name's Julie. I started donating maybe about 20 years in high school. I got my mom to sign the permission slip, and I pretty much did it so I can get out of class for a while.
Yeah.
And then it kind of became, I don't know, kind of exhilarating to do it. I'm not brave enough to be a doctor or a nurse and be able to do the surgery and all that, so I kind of felt like I was kind of contributing to survival, maybe, by donating blood. So I just want to say this was really neat to get together and hear everyone's stories. I was in Chicago over the week, and I was telling my mom and sisters I was coming to this, and they were really inspired, and my mom's like, well, now I want to go out and donate. I'm like, well, all right.
Yay.
So next time you're in town, Mom.
So this is so great, hearing everybody's story, hearing you talk about going to Woodburn and donating at your church, and you're an A negative, and we did double reds, which that makes me really proud because the staff did the right thing with you, because as you know, you're kind of rare at 6% of the population being an A negative, so we definitely want those red cells. And Tate turned out to be an A positive, so that's perfect for him. So I thank you all. I love looking out on this room. When we were looking back at our donors, we saw that there were donors who were in their early 30s, donors all the way up to my dad, 78. He's probably not going to like it that I said that, but anyway. Sometimes it was your very first donation that saved Tate. Others have donated, 20, 30, 50 times, 20 gallons, whatever the number is. So you never know who you're going to save, whose blood product is going to be in just the right place at just the right time. So thank you all for coming tonight. I really appreciate it. This has been great. I think we'll do this some more, Julia. She's like, yay. It was a lot of work for her, so I really appreciate everything that you did. And please feel free to eat the rest of the food, to hang out. We have definitely more time here. And thank you so much. And if you're eligible, we're ready for you to donate, so come on in. Thank you all.